4. Oh, we're on, aren't we?
Yeah, another good start here. JF, there's my big buddy. Hello, everybody.
Hi. I'm just as tired as I was yesterday.
Hey, Tom.
5-hour energy, though.
So, from a new computer, we got a new backdrop, we got our new fancy banner here. So, we are cautiously optimistic that we'll go and tell your friends to join, because if the last 2 weeks are an indication, we'll have a technical glitch and lose this again. So, hopefully it stays.
And we're going to save this time, just in case.
Right. We're going to give that a shot.
Or Angie will smack us.
Right.
Again.
What's up with the lighting? We're in a different place. So, look, it's all a work in progress.
Pretty soon we're going to be in suit and ties with like, just in.
Actually, it's like we did this sort of on purpose, you know, because when you got things like this, you know, it's just like when you go into the club, you know, you want it dark a little, so then you wake up, you know,
whoa, what happened?
So this way, you know, this is the best possible lighting for us, I'm assuming. So, great topic tonight. Short sales and foreclosures, and as usual, we're going to try to cover this from a couple of different angles. We'll start off with the easy one, I suppose. If you're a seller, when do you end up in a short sale? Justin, don't you start.
I'm really confused right now because I'm sitting on Jim's right side. However, we're on the left side of the
I know, it's freaking me out a little bit.
Backwards. Right. It caused me that much trouble when you're on the other side. It's really messing me up right now. Sorry.
Yeah. Short sales for a seller. A couple of things to keep in mind. We've heard all sorts of things. People hear all sorts of misinformation. I would say that people fall into 2 categories that we see. The most common is the one that you would sort of expect. People that have financial hardship. They lose a job. They had an adjustable rate mortgage, and the mortgage went through the roof. Things like that. Medical emergencies, unexpected repairs, divorces is a big one. So those are the folks that you generally see. I heard her. Excuse me. That's my wife checking up on me. And the other is what we call strategic defaulters. And those are people that we saw a lot with investment properties and vacation homes. And so those are people that could afford the house, but had just gotten to a point where they decided that it was financially advantageous for them to walk away from the transaction. And the big difference, you got a much easier chance of getting the short sale approved. And just, I guess we should back up a little bit. Dana, do you want to explain what a short sale is in the first place?
First of all, like I say in my CDA class, there's nothing short about a short sale, except for what the bank is getting paid back. Excuse me, I can't get rid of this cough. Thanks, Mindy. There's nothing short about a short sale. And one of the big misnomers that we hear all the time, especially in the CDA class, is...
Well, just back up a second. For the people that don't know, what is the definition of a short sale? What is a short sale? A
short sale is when you owe more than what the property is actually worth. And so basically, if you owe $300,000 on a house, and it may be worth $250,000 for today, the bank is going to be getting paid back short of what is actually owed on the property. Did I say that backwards? You owe $300,000, the property is worth $250,000. So basically, you're not going to be able to pay the bank back the extra $50,000. So you're basically going to the bank and saying, "Hi, Mr. Bank, I'm sorry, but I can only afford to pay you back $250,000, not the full $300,000." Thus, being the short sale. You're paying the bank back short of what is actually owed on the property.
Right, and to Dana's point, there's nothing short about it. They do it very backwards, which I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about why the process is so involved. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but just to sort of put a bow around the seller side of things, if you're a strategic defaulter, you really have to have your story straight, and you have to get a little bit lucky, because the banks are much less likely to work with you if they know that you have the financial ability to continue to pay. And if you have distress. The other sort of key component to that is leverage. So if you are behind on the mortgage and you are way upside down on the property, then the bank is much more likely to work with you on that short sale, because a short sale costs about $50,000. I should take that back. A foreclosure costs about $50,000 to the bank, regardless of the value of the property. So you have a $200,000 house, and you're going to let it. And if they can see the writing on the wall that you're 6-9 months behind and you're never going to make those payments again, then you have a much better chance of getting that bank to work with you on the short sale, because they're trying to avoid that foreclosure. If, on the other hand, you're trying to preserve your credit, we've had sellers who had real needs and reasons for doing a short sale, but whether it be government clearances or whole caveat of reasons, they didn't want to ruin their credit and they're keeping up on the mortgage. And if you do that, the banks, in our experience, have been much less likely to work with you on approving those, because at the end of the day, they are collection agencies, and they'll say all the right things, and they'll tell you, that they want to work with you and they want to help you, but
where's my money?
Right. And if you're paying it, then they're getting their money, so they're going to string you along and
that's right.
Make things difficult for you.
And it does sound, you're saying strategic people as well who drop their properties. It's not you don't just go to the bank and say, hey, I can't afford to pay. Like you have to give them a hardship letter. The reason why you can't pay it back. You got to give them W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns. I mean, you have to supply a whole boatload of information for them to even basically approve you for the short sale.
So, circling around, and just so you know too, from the seller side of things, the effect on your credit is very similar whether you do a short sale or a foreclosure. We get people call us a lot of times and they go, oh, well, I'm going to do a short sale because I don't want a foreclosure on my record. But for practical purposes, they're very similar. They both are it's both going to take you years before you're able to buy again, even if your credit somehow is okay. And it's also, it's going to be a derogatory mark in a similar fashion on your credit report. But the big advantage for a seller is that it stops the bleeding. So, and again, we use attorneys to negotiate these. And we highly recommend, if you're going to do a short sale, that there's an attorney involved, because real estate agents, we're supposed to stay in this narrow channel of practicing real estate. And the minute you start talking about short sales, you get really murky into the world of law. So it's good to have an attorney, because what can happen, I guess what I'm circling around to, is if you do a short sale, and that scenario that Dana was talking about where you owe $300 and we sell it for $250, you go to settlement, and this especially was the case a few years ago. You go to settlement and they get their $250, think, okay, good, I'm done, I'm on to the next thing in my life, and this is behind me. And then 5 years later, the bank sells $50,000 that you left on the table to a collection agency, and then they come back and start hounding you and say, hey, you still owe us the money. So it becomes one of those things that you have to be very careful to know that when you finish that short sale, that the mortgage company is considering the debt satisfied. And that is what happens with the foreclosure, because there's a lot of people that say, you know what, I'm just going to ride it out here. Well, when you go to foreclosure, if there's still a deficit, bank has the right to come after you for that deficit later. Now, do they do it very often? No, but they have the right to. And what they can do is they can take that $100,000 you owe, and of course by that time there's penalties and interest and all the rest of it, and they sell that to a collection agency for $100 or $1,000, and they say, then that collection agency starts hounding you. So if a short sale is done properly, you have an end point to the whole process, and you can know that, okay, this is behind me now and I can move on with my life. When you do a foreclosure, you still have the specter, at least, of that coming out. And Andy read my mind. Next thing that you, and this, I'm going to put my my careful realtor hat on and say, consult with all short sales and foreclosures. Consult competent legal advice and competent tax advice. So go to your tax professional. But there are tax consequences with short sales and foreclosures. With a short sale, the money that is forgiven, up until about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, was that they Congress had a law that passed that if you filed if you did a short sale, because this is a weird little quirk of law, right now, if they forgive $100,000, the IRS considers that forgiven money income to you.
That's right.
So again, that's been a whammy for a lot of people. And a couple of years ago, they had a law that said if you did a short sale, then they're not going to consider that forgiven debt as income to you.
But like all the other laws, I think it ran its course, and now it falls back to the original.
Right. And it's my understanding that there are there's exceptions, and I believe one of them is insolvency. So, and chances are, if you're doing a short sale, you're probably not in the greatest financial shape. So, if you can prove that's your guy, and let him tell you that. So, So that ended up being a little longer than I expected.
I might.
But let's circle around to, you want to buy a house and you see this great deal that is a foreclosure.
Should we explain what that is?
Actually, you know what?
I think we should do a whole nother segment on buyers who want to buy short sale or foreclosure, because that's another whole 15 minutes.
Right. So we're gonna talk for a couple more minutes, but we're gonna put a pin in the buy side of it, because there is a lot to the listing side of things with short sales and foreclosures. I guess the one takeaway, if I was going to sell my house, is the thing that we fall back on all the time is make sure you hire good real estate agents, because this is not for the JV. It's there's a lot of consequences and a lot of stakes, and we are smart enough to know what we don't know. So we work with professionals, and we make sure that the advice that we give you is backed up with people that are smarter than us, which doesn't take a lot. But
it's so easy a caveman can do.
Right. But anyway, it's another thing, and this is just anecdotal, but because the prices have come up a little bit, we've seen a lot of banks get a lot tougher with short sales. And they put people through the ringer. And this is another, again, I'll probably step in here a little bit, but it's sort of one of those dirty secrets with the process. A lot of times there's a loan servicer who is not necessarily the end user. It's not the person that actually owns your mortgage. They're just servicing the loan, and they get paid to service the loan. And the more they drag out, the more the process is involved, the more they get paid. So I personally feel like homeowners are pawns a lot of times in the process. So, but again, sharp real estate agent and sharp attorneys can see that, and then sometimes there's no choice. You have to deal with the process, and other times you might say, okay, let's maybe see if we can find a plan B.
The other thing to keep in mind too is, or I guess maybe what we should say, Jim, when can you start a short sale process?
You mean it?
Like how far I'm behind do I need to be before I can go to
anybody
and say, hey, I'm going to do the short sale process?
Right. I mean, right away. And really, like we're.
But lots of times, when we find out about the short sale, they're already behind 5 or 6 months.
Right.
And that can be okay, and that can be not okay, depending on what bank you're with. Lots of times we see the larger banks like Bank of America or Chase or one of those guys. It could take 2 years before you get foreclosed upon. And it gives you time to work with it. But the smaller banks are smaller moving. It's easier to turn a small bank, and they usually turn their short sale process in a much quicker amount of time. So they can foreclose on you quicker with a smaller bank than typically you see with the bigger bank.
The takeaway is, don't stick your head in the sand.
Yeah, deal with it.
Right.
Because it's not going away.
Right. So, and again, there's, let's talk to a good real estate agent and get a plan. And there's times where maybe you, obviously, if there's a way around it, if you can find a better scenario than doing a short sale or foreclosure, because they have a huge impact on a lot of things, but not the least of which is your credit. And but if you can find a workaround, and we're certainly we had a client that called us for a short sale I guess the end of the summer, that called us to do a short sale, and they walked away with $20,000 because the market had improved enough. And he was totally prepared to list it with another agent as a short sale. So,
you know what? We could do a whole nother segment, Jim, on loan modifications.
Oh, good grief.
I just went on a listing appointment tonight, and we've got to massage this and figure out how we're going deal with this one, but it's a loan modification, which also has consequences that the banks don't usually tell you about. So we could do a whole nother segment on that, I think, as well.
So, all right, we've had some complaints about the lighting. We're going to wrap it up there. But would love to know what you think about this backdrop as opposed to what we were doing before. And anyway, got plenty more to talk about. We only got halfway through this topic, so we'll circle around that next week. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we'll be back Friday to say hi. So have a good week.
See you guys.
Bye.
Back to work. Till tomorrow morning.